number of us had been discussing both during the campaign and then, during the election. I've been on too many campaigns. During the election, the role of super PACs, and a number of folks that actually weren't able to make it here today were part of sort of that group that was conscious of the issue, concerned about the issue, and started to talk about ways to address the issue. And so a number of conversations just started among the folks here. We decided that it made sense, particularly in light of some of the postscripts of the campaign cycle that super PACs essentially lost. And our concern was that this is just the beginning. And our concern was that the election that just occurred would fade into folks' memory or lack of their memory, and we wouldn't see action this legislative session as a result. So sort of one thing led to another, and we decided that it made sense to do an event and raise the issue and give opportunity for a few folks to speak about it.
Is there also, though, given your former employer, who's a candidate who had lots of money, so in a sense, you know, he's got plenty of money. You work for a guy who had a lot of money to give in an election. Is it not true that money is always buying the election, and this is just people you don't like buying the election?
No, it's a good question. I think the issue is the level of transparency and the accountability. What we have seen in the past is campaign finance rules that have limited dollars and disclosed dollars. And the super PAC spending is a wholly different thing in that it is completely unlimited, and it's will essentially morph into something that we could predict or probably don't want to predict. And so you know, money certainly has a role in campaigns, and I think many folks would like to see the contribution limits lowered and transparency requirements increased. And certainly there was, in a fiercely fought congressional race, a fair amount of money. It was probably just over $1 million each candidate in 2006. But it was a very different thing. It was candidates standing by the ads that they were running. It was candidates talking about issues that they cared about, and voters were able to decide. I think, to echo Monica's point, I think Vermonters are particularly turned off by outside spending. It distracts from the candidates' own voices, and whether you chalk it up or not, you have seen the turnout in this last election actually came down a little bit, despite folks thinking that it was actually going to be a little bit higher. So I don't know that, I wouldn't say that that's evidence, but I think that's a trajectory that we're on where people don't feel inspired to be able to vote because they don't think they have a strong enough voice.
If the expectation or the goal out of this potential legislation is to clear up confusion, how does adding another face on a commercial or adding another name that's put out to the public help clear up that?
Well, I'll take a stab at it. I think at the end of the day, more disclosure and more transparency is only going to strengthen the dialogue that we have, and a stronger framework around reporting expectations and more clear communication about who's paying for what is only, even with the flurry of ads that are out there already, it'll only strengthen the level of understanding that Vermont voters have about who's doing what. This is the issue of money in politics. Raising this now could be we could be accused of being a little bit naive, and maybe being naive is a relatively young person's privilege, but it's gone on for generations and it will continue to go on for generations. But this is this skirmish in that particular conversation. And what's clear is sometimes it's worth saying we don't like where we are and we really don't like where we're headed. And I think that's what you're hearing here.
Is supporting a candidate anonymously a thing of the past?
I think it should be. I would just add to the question that you asked earlier is that the difference of having someone accountable for the ad that they've paid to run really does make a difference, because voters are able to size up what the organization is, who it is. There's just, with super PACs, there's really no sense of who's behind it. And I think that we have in Vermont done a good job of requiring disclosure disclosure of campaign contributions above $100 with a person's name, and that's vital because any person looking to decide whether or not to vote for a candidate or not can look on that list and find out who contributed to that candidate. I think that's important. I think that really is important.
So should the transparency be the same throughout? Let's say, when she can't vote, wants to contribute some of her babysitting money to a certain candidate. Should she be held just as accountable for the $50 I'm making up that she would potentially spend in the future as someone that spends $500,000? Or is it not the same weight for a smaller amount of money versus a larger?
I think you have to be pragmatic about how you're weighing the difference, but if an individual were to be sponsoring an ad and they were paying for that ad, they ought to be behind that, and that's a big difference between giving a small donation to a campaign and being behind an ad.
Yeah, when Newt Gingrich bowed out of the Republican primary, he didn't thank Annika for her $7. He thanked the Adelsons for their $20 million for single-handedly keeping him in the election. And I think that sort of speaks for itself.
So you want to see an image of Lenore Broughton or whoever, or David Blittersdorf on an ad, basically, if they contribute more than a certain amount.
Yeah, if they're giving a third or half, we propose a third to a super PAC to run an ad, they should be standing behind that ad.
The idea of a sole source super PAC requires some justification on the part of the person who's sourcing the money. But I think it's also key to note, these are recommendations, they're ideas, they're a few of us sitting around saying, where can we start? We hope the legislature takes it up. We hope Vermont voters pay close attention to who responds how to super PACs. We hope we take advantage of the proximity of each other and our communities to monitor this, because we have something special here that could get away from us.
So as an ad hoc group, what are you doing other than this event? Who have you contacted the legislature? What response have you had?
I think that remains to be seen. I think we wanted to first start off with this event and see what type of response we do get from the legislature. I can anticipate that we'll find other ways to be involved, whether it's through op-eds. I know I've drafted one, or through other means, potentially testifying before the legislature, which I'm sure folks in this group would be willing to do. As far as your second question, in terms of folks we've spoken with, I did have brief conversations with Speaker Smith and Secretary of State Kondos, letting them know about the event, and just wanted to give them the heads up, and the feedback was positive. I don't want to speak for them. You can obviously feel free to give them a call, but my sense is that if we are able to continue the momentum of folks paying attention to this issue, we will see it come up in January and February, so the legislature acts. I think that's actually something that across all parties, a tripartisan or nonpartisan issue that we can hope to see.
Should the party? Sorry.
Did you come up with all of these ideas yourself, or have these been pitched in other states?
Some of the issues have even been mentioned in, even in the state, in Vermont, but essentially drawing on different proposals and different ideas. I do think that Vermont ought to look hard at what other states are doing. We've long prided ourselves on campaign finance reform leadership, but it doesn't mean we need to lead on every issue. We can look to other states that very likely are reeling from the same election style that we just had.
Should party spending be regulated in some way as well?
That's a good question. That's something that we haven't addressed as this group, but it's part of the dialogue that should occur about whether or not party issue will spend a certain level or not.
But it's not a part of this group's
We haven't.
today.
Yeah, we haven't. Not today. Sorry.
In terms of your point of view, are you all Democrats and independents, or any Republican in the group?
All right. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I didn't hear it. No, I don't think so. I mean, I don't think so.
Okay, all Democrats and independents.
Do you have a name for this group?
No. It'd be nice if you did. Something catchy, but not a super PAC. So.
Will this same group be, the A to B, be present in the legislature talking about this particular issue altogether, or? Is this a collected group, or is this just sort of we came together today to talk about it today, or is it sort of a release and we'll talk in the future?
I won't. My sense is that we came together today to be able to talk about this issue and raise the consciousness and raise the issue up before folks truly forgot about it from this election. But my sense is that there are folks within this group that will provide support and other ways of being involved in the future. And, I know some folks who actually couldn't attend because of jobs or Thanksgiving travel that want to do something that will that couldn't attend today, that will write an op-ed or do something like that. So I think it's something that it's not defined around a box, but I think that's somewhat of the exciting thing about being able to come together and raise an issue that our sense is many Vermonters have on their minds.
No t-shirts yet.
No t-shirts. All right. Thanks very much, guys.